Hello friends, and welcome to another video. Today's topic is going to be finding your comic art style. Now, this is easier said than done, and I'm hoping to alleviate some of your frustration with finding this style for you and your work. So, my theory is that finding your style for any type of artwork is going to be found on the Venn diagram of the things that you enjoy looking at and where your capabilities currently lie. So where these two things overlap, intersect, that is the sweet spot in which we want to operate. We also want to consider time frame. So, are you going to be dedicating a lot of time to this? A little bit of time? Are you going to do 1 page a week? 1 page a month? You know, you kind of have to think about these things ahead of time just because they are going to influence especially the level of complexity in which you will be working. And that affects the style, really. Because if you're gonna do something super complicated and embellished and decorated, that is going to be a huge time sink. So keep that in mind. And especially with characters, you're gonna want to remember you are drawing these characters many times over. So try generally, again, unless you're doing that very embellished, very highly detailed style, you have enough time and energy for that. But for the average person, especially this individual that is doing a comic all on their own, I would recommend trying not to make your characters too complicated because you will suffer. Especially, like I said, if you are doing this comic all on your own. Perfect example, the artist of the Hellsing manga killed off a character because their tattoos were just too complicated, and it was just such a huge time sink to not only draw the character, but then on top of it, draw this extremely complex design all over their body. You do want to consider that when you're creating characters. I've done a lot of commissions where I had to draw so many pages of heavily tattooed characters, and it adds a lot of time. I'm not saying it's impossible, but stuff like that is going to be a huge time sink, so definitely consider that when you are designing your characters. And again, complexity is going to influence style. What can we get done? So that takes me to my next thought, how I think you have to approach thinking about your style. Do not get married to any one look. I think that's going to hold you back. You have to ask yourself, not, oh, well, I don't have enough time to make it look the way I want. No. You're gonna have to reframe your thinking here and think, what can be done in the allotted amount of time? Because if you said, hey, Charlie, draw me a 1-page comic in 2 minutes, guess what? You're getting stick, people. And that's fine. I had 2 minutes to draw it. Now, if you gave me 2 weeks to draw 1 page, it's going to be a lot more detailed. It's probably going to be full color, you know? So, again, that's just kind of thinking about that time frame. If you're putting out a page a week or a page a month, you got to be honest with yourself. What can I get done in the allotted amount of time, even if it is not exactly how I envisioned it? Because done is better than perfect, because perfect is never going to happen. I think a lot of artists get super married to like an initial idea, and then they keep scrapping and scrapping and scrapping when things aren't meeting that beautiful vision, and then they get nothing done. They have nothing to show for all their hard work. So yeah, you might have to simplify how you're drawing if you're gonna hit these deadlines. If you're gonna hit that 1 page a week, that 1 page a month, whatever you're doing, you're gonna have to cut some corners, frankly. And I think a lot of artists are uncomfortable thinking about that or doing that. But the ones that get ahead, the ones that get it done, the ones who turn in projects on time, they work smarter, not harder. So, big thoughts, big brain here. Another way that many artists, including myself, kind of cut corners when it comes to keeping that level of detail not too, unattainable. We work smarter, not harder, and do like a gradient in the background or just a simple background. Not every panel has to be extremely complicated. I think that is something that a lot of artists run into when they first create a comic, and they get very overwhelmed. Not every panel has to be super detailed. Again, level of detail influencing your style. Some other things to consider when developing a style, especially with comics, is considering line weight, proportions, like I mentioned, level of detail, and color palette. But I think, personally, I spent so many years just wasting time afraid of looking inconsistent and kind of having this obsession with, it has to look exactly the same from beginning to end. I want it to look really cohesive. And I think especially when you are a one-man team, that just doesn't really happen. Like, that's not actually a realistic expectation. Every manga, every, comic I've read over time, especially like web comics, again, stuff that like primarily one artist is working on, I see the style change over time, and that's fine. If you ever want to just like redo chapter 1, maybe you put out 100 chapters and you have a really like consistent, comfy style that you really like working in, and you want to go back and redo the earlier chapters in this new style, you can do that. There's no rules. Like, no one is stopping you from doing that. So why not just start? Your skill is naturally going to improve over time. You're going to become faster over time and better at it over time, whether you're already at a professional level or not. It's gonna change anyway. You might as well just jump in. I'm thinking, I wish I remembered their name right now, but I was reading this webcomic, and the first 2 or 3 chapters were in like an old school manga style, and then the next chapter they just switched to like Western comics, and they just never looked back. And I love that. They have a successful webcomic. I'm just senile and can't remember the name. And they just didn't let this obsession with consistency like stop them. And I was like, you know what? Like, I should do that. Like, I should just do it, But yeah, so don't be too obsessed with consistency. Again, consistency is nice. It's great. I think it looks great. But we also have to be realistic here. And again, if you're a one-man team, some things are just not gonna happen, in a timely manner. And we just have to be okay with that. But yeah, I say stay as consistent as you can. For a long time, I was like preaching, oh, it has to be consistent. I think as long as the art looks good, like B- or above, and the story's really good, someone's gonna read it, you know? But like I said earlier, done is better than perfect, because perfect is not going to happen. So I just really challenge you to just start your comic and try not to torture yourself over things like consistency, like I have. And I should have started this comic that I'm working on in the video. I should have started this literally like 10 years ago. I'm not even exaggerating. 10 years ago, I should have been doing this. I've been writing it for so long, and then, you know, I abandon it, and then I get back to it, and it's like, you just have to start. Starting is the hardest part. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, just put pen to paper, start making stuff, go at the pace that you're comfortable with, and the style will come out naturally over time. Like, this is not something that you're gonna flesh out and figure out right away and then jump into it like a little robot and produce this like exact thing that you planned. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like, don't plan too much, because art is organic and it is going to take on a life of its own. It is going to change over time, and it is going to come out a little different than you expect. So psychologically, as an artist, you need to become okay with that. And I feel like since I've kind of become okay with that, I've been making a lot more work, and it's going, and I'm pretty happy about it. So just wanted to share that. And then for the rest of the video, I guess I'll just ramble about some shortcuts to take, some corners that I think are safe to clip. When coloring a comic, which is arguably the most time intensive. Some people say it's their inks, some people say it's the colors. Yeah, it's probably close. They're neck and neck. But personally, I'm a lot more comfortable with inking. I think I can knock it out a lot faster than I can color. But when coloring, you can certainly do like a painting style if that's your thing, if that's what you're comfortable doing. But if you're not married to the idea of a super rendered or painted, you know, really detailed coloring for your comic, cell shading is amazing. A lot of comic artists, again, a lot of one-man teams will, or they'll do the manga thing. They'll just do it in black and white. Black and white, flat colors. Cell shading is basically just that really simple, like, you put on a multiply layer and then just, you know, add shadows that way. And don't make it too complicated. Another shortcut when inking is, I find a lot of artists, and I used to do this a lot more. I think I'm a little more comfortable with coloring now, but before I was comfortable coloring comics, I loved just kind of doing that posterized thing where a value is either black or white. So you do use a lot more ink, and you are, you know, it's gonna look a little heavier, a lot more dark, but if you're doing like a noir comic or something, man, that is just so much easier and faster to color. You know, using limited color palettes is also a great way to just like, it's like a no-brainer. You know, you can plan the color palette ahead of time and then just pull from those like 5 colors or less. 3, 1, maybe it's black, white, and 1 color. I love doing that. Saves a lot of time. It Also, working like that, I think it really improved my ink work because, like, I had to make sure it looked really good on its own in black and white, and then I would just add, like, pops of color, and it looked fire. And like I said, it kind of forces your ink work to stand on its own, and then you add color on top of that. Incredible. Like, amazing. So that's another corner I think is safe to cut. Yeah, I've seen a lot of artists just get in their own head, and I think a lot of my advice is related to that. It's like this psychology behind making art and making comics. So unrelated, but I've been getting some comments about this comic and whether it is out to read yet. It is not, unfortunately. I'm trying to create a backlog so that I can post it maybe weekly? We'll see. I'm just trying to have more pages under my belt. So, for the meantime, they will only be sneak peeks here on YouTube and on Instagram until further notice, but I will let y'all know. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. You're literally the best. And have a great week. I will see you in the next one. Bye!